everyone, my name's Laura Shanks. I am originally from New York, but I am recording this for you now in the mountains of Vermont. So I started taking yoga asana classes at around age 14. A dance teacher recommended I try Bikram yoga to improve flexibility. While I was apparently born with a strange knack for balance, flexibility is not in my genes. So this is something, believe it or not, that I've been working on for over the last 20 years. My mother was a television journalist for over 30 years here in the States. And while it's definitely taken me a long time to realize, I think she was a big influence on me. She was motivated by learning and a commitment to sharing truth and knowledge, telling the facts as they are, which is something that I personally try to impart when sharing yoga philosophy now. I was a journalism major myself in college and a history minor. As a child, I wanted to be an actress and a dancer. So, to a certain extent, you could say an internet yoga teacher is a bizarre combination of these. And I really do feel like I'm living my dream by sharing with you all now. So, thank you for that. So, I kept up Bikram on and off and continued to dance into college. But then I ended up becoming a fashion publicist in New York City post college, and I had a somewhat successful but definitely very, very stressful career in that field for about 5 years. During this time, any yoga or dance practice was definitely extremely limited. But I remember often doing a few postures, such as inversions and restorative postures in the evenings to help wind down before bed. Long story short, during this time, I just wasn't super happy. I struggled with depression and anxiety, and all of the nice designer clothes and shoes I was collecting didn't seem to bring the happiness that I thought they would. During this time, I started studying and reading up on different schools of philosophy. I had been a somewhat of a wannabe anarchist punk. So I read up on socialism, existentialism, anarchism to try and better understand what all the punk rock songs I was listening to were talking about. And also in hopes of stumbling across something that could help me to find the happiness that I was looking for. Unfortunately, after several family tragedies, I wound up quitting my job to help take care of my family. And eventually, I decided to take off traveling, again in search of what I felt was this missing piece in my life. I started teaching English to preschool students in Thailand to help to pay for said travel, where I started to practice yoga again. After coming back to the States to again help with family, I then wound up in Central America where yoga really started to now become a daily part of my life again. I took a retreat in Costa Rica where I was introduced to Ashtanga Vinyasa Yoga and immediately signed up for my first training. This one at first was in classical hatha and meditation though, as I had some rather bizarre and profound experiences during my travels that drew me towards meditation and the more subtle aspects of the practice at this time. A few months after my first course, I did a training in Ashtanga though, and I just haven't stopped that practice since. I then moved to Goa, India, where I started teaching and was trained there to teach what I now teach on these trainings, primarily yoga philosophy, anatomy, pranayama, meditation, and Ashtanga Vinyasa. I did a training in Greece around this time, I believe about 3 years ago now, where I met Joanna, who bizarrely was also working at a school in Goa 15 minutes from where I was working there. So very small world, and I like to point this out because you never know how the relationships you form, especially on these trainings, will manifest. Anyways, after about 2 years in Goa and this strong desire that started to develop to learn more about Ashtanga from its source, I left for Mysore, India, where I studied at KAPJ, or K. Patabi Joyce Ashtanga Yoga Institute, for many months. On top of asana, I also studied with several big philosophy teachers there and studied traditional Ayurveda and chanting. And I will hopefully continue when this travel ban lifts to go back to India annually to study with them. I personally had not heard of the word Om or any explanation as to what exactly yoga was for the first 15 years I thought I was practicing it. I literally thought it was just for flexibility and any spiritual stuff. I was really turned off by growing up in a somewhat strict Christian family. My rebellious, so to speak, nature led me to kind of shun any religious or spiritual practices. So when I first read the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali for my first training, I was completely blown away by how much sense they made to me at the time and still do. They're of course very complicated, but at that time I was just so blown away by like, whew, this is it, is what I felt. So I've personally put a lot of focus over the last 2 years into finding a way to build a bridge now between Eastern and Western thought for the daily practitioner in a modern and practical way, attempting, if you will, to integrate contemporary science and psychology with timeless philosophical and natural truths. Along the way, I also became fascinated with the body and its interconnectedness, and I put a lot of time into studying anatomy, physiology, and fascia, of which I will also be sharing with you. So, on this course, I will be covering the philosophy unit, which includes a brief history of yoga, as well as an introduction to Ayurveda, yoga's sister science of holistic healthcare. I will also guide you through breath work and sitting and meditation practices, covering Eastern anatomy as well. I will also share Western anatomy and maybe a workshop or two with you as well. I'm very excited to be working with all of you on this course. It's so important to continue to try and come together as a community right now, even if it's from afar. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy this course. Namaste.